Recording has started for SIG 2 Nefio meeting March 2024. Apologies that this starts 30 minutes too late. Let's continue.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. So we can create any number of boards, and then if you want to pick the views, and then obviously we'll not clutter the board with anything not related to R3, because we'll create a R3 specific board. I think that can be taken care of. So in this meeting, if you can principally agree, if we may not have to finalize, but if we can principally agree some of the things, then we can agree on the list of groups, and then probably we can suggest these are the labels we need to create, these are the area labels we need to create, and then I can start looking into those things. If you can
Vish,
come to some kind of an agreement.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Vish?
Oh, yeah. Sorry if I'm asking a very fundamental question. Just wanted to ask the service assurance and observability. I'm just trying to map it to the swim lane that we have, the 3 swim lane, the infra, the network function configuration and deployment. Do you see it fit into any of these 3, or is it outside of that? A general question, sorry, very basic.
It's all of 3.
Yeah, it's all of them. I think what's really great for R3 or R3 plus is that our 2 big use cases, service assurance and ORAN, involve everything pretty much, and that's really great. I think that's what we want, because we're not just creating features, we're creating features for a purpose.
Okay, it's more like an end-to-end solution from a customer endpoint perspective.
Exactly. It keeps us honest and makes sure that we're not just building something theoretical, but something that really applies to what the telco industry needs right now.
Okay, so that means it necessarily does not touch any of our core Nefio core components. It's like displaying that it's demonstrating that we are able to specify this as an intent. Basically, model can be modeled as an intent, and then can be consumed by one of the orchestrators to go off and deploy this. I mean, that's how I see it. So just wanting to make sure that I am not misunderstanding.
That's my understanding, right? Although in my view, we're building a reference implementation, right? How a real world orchestrator would integrate with Nefio is still a little bit open, right? ORAN has its own view on what the different roles of orchestration are. You know, it has its own kind of, here are the components, the functional components. All of them might be implemented by the same orchestrator, right? It could be one orchestrator that's a IMS, DMS, FOCOM, everything together, right? We you know, ORAN itself is a work in progress, right?
Yeah, because I think I'm glad you mentioned it earlier about like there are observable systems, right? Like the Prometheus and all, right? Because nobody wants to just dump it and actually use this that we have, right? So that is where I was like trying to like understand like, hey, where is the differentiation here? I mean, I could see it like how you come up with a KRM resource for specifying your intent for observability. And then still you can still continue to use some of the older systems that you have been always using for observability, like Prometheus or whatever else is there for service assurance.
Right. You know,
but we need to make our systems observable. That's the thing, right?
That's why it's more like integration, basically, with some of those things.
So let's organize integration, you know, into the categories that the industry uses generally. There are greenfield projects
and brownfield,
that start from zero, and you know, they can be based on Nefio and add things. There are brownfield projects, which is
pre-existing.
Right. You have existing networks and you're adding Nefio in some way to them. So imagine, for example, you already have 5G deployed and you're adding new sites, but they need to be incorporated into existing systems. So there are already inventories and catalogs, and there's probably Tosca being used or other things and Helm. So those are brownfield areas where Nefio has to integrate tightly with existing systems. And I'll also mention there's Bluefield, right? A term that's sometimes used to show projects that are a mix, right? So it could be parts of it are green, parts of it are brown. You know, generally speaking, we do not have a very clear narrative for brownfield, right? Nefio started very green, and Kubernetes generally is very green, right? Kubernetes uses a very different orchestration paradigm, the cloud native paradigm, right? The declarative paradigm, which is different from existing systems, right? So I think as we're maturing more, we have to think more and more about Bluefield and Brownfield, right? And have actual use cases to drive that. ORAN, in my opinion, is the first one that kind of moves in that direction, because even if ORAN is Greenfield itself, it tries to describe components that already exist. Sorry, that was a bit long-winded. I hope that was clear.
Yeah,
Right.
good. I mean, because like, when we start thinking about it, I just wanted to make sure that we're mapping some of these things to core, to integration, to a solution and stuff like that. For me, at least, that's how I try to map. So thank you.
Yeah.
And what about security? Sorry, I cut.
Yeah.
There is one more board of security, or
Yeah,
where
yeah,
he fit.
security. Yes, that's that. Thanks, Vardhan. We missed it. Yeah. So yeah, yeah. I think can we? I know. Can we start? So these are at least if I look at these things, let's say STK observability. Let's say even if you make observability and SA separate, at least there is some clarity there. And platform is there. ORAN is there. I think scalability, I think like you said, we can collapse that into platform TAL. Documentation is definitely the separate one. Enough to infra, I was initially thinking it's part of platform. No?
I would think so. So before we start consolidating things, I think create a list. It's going to be long. We
Yeah.
definitely don't want 20 task forces.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we're starting with the topics. I want to make sure there's not anything more to add, but
Got
now
it.
that if we say that this is the list, then let's start to think about consolidation into actual work teams, right? So the task, so as we said, there's the issue of labels. So we can create a labels for all of these and even more. That's fine. But when we actually assemble task forces, I think the list will be much smaller than this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it did we, yeah, that's a good point. Let's see if we missed anything. We have STK. Modeling, do you think anything anything are we gonna do related to SIG2 TAL, or do you think the modeling is going
Not
to
yet.
remain
This
not
is more looking forward.
okay?
But modeling involves both our platform components, but also how the content of our packages, right? How we model actually networks. That's where it relates to kind of SIG1's goal of network architecture, right? Not just architecture, but specifically how do we model networks in KRM? And I'm using networks writ large, not just Multis, but really building, data planes, control planes, and the entire ORAN dance, for example, mid haul, front haul, etc. Right? So that's what I mean by networking, right? So that's very use case driven, but that work has only really begun in SIG1, kind of documenting. We're doing kind of a combination of two things: documenting what we have right now, and on the other hand, documenting what we think we should have, right? And to kind of find out of this might emerge a plan for how we can move forward. But right now, it's very much in the beginning. We don't have a specific use case in mind. We're more about just gathering data and information and techniques for a process for moving forward.
Yeah, I think so. Then if that is not there, then no, just thinking, I think this should cover it, right? We have STK, observability, SA, platform, ORAN.
Yes.
I think that's pretty much it. I think. Can anybody think of any other big item that we missed?
So Bella, I don't know if you want to include SIG3 related task forces as well, right? Because a lot of the same people are involved in both, right?
Yeah, probably.
The
Yeah,
fact that
probably
you're
they
here
just.
right now is a big
Yeah,
part of that.
probably you can say, yeah, release. Yeah, let's put that one item. For
Yeah. So there are all these aspects. I kind of put them under performance and scalability and platform, right? For example, the fixing issues with Porch could also mean just making our end-to-end tests run much faster, right? That's a big goal for us as well. So that's kind of in SIG 3, but some of the work might be done here in SIG 2, right? So again, we might have just multiple labels for that. We might, for example, there could be a performance label, but a specific issue might also have a platform label or a Porch label, etc.
Yeah, I think
Right.
let's make that explicit. I like the idea. Can we add the bullet items for end-to-end testing and SIG release in general, so that
Let me start doing.
yeah.
Bala, do you think for POX also we should have one kind of label or maybe separate entities? So, for example, last time Tal has did a TKO, right? So those kind of things also we can track it under the POCs.
Yeah, we can create any number of these things, Subhash. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's not an issue, and even when as they come in new, if we find it relevant, we need to do, we can always add it.
Yeah.
But at this point of time, the current thing is to make sure that we create some sub teams, which is kind of organically forming as part of SIG1, and formalize them into execution team for SIG2 is essentially what we are trying to do here. Yeah.
Like you're saying, you're focused more on the release rather than POCs.
Yeah, POCs are also part of the release. It could be part of the release. I'm pretty sure there could be some POCs coming as a part of.
That means
just
it'll be
like the way we
packaged as
did-
part of the release?
s-
No,
sorry.
right? It won't be packaged as a release. It might be in the release time frame,
Yes, it won't be
but we
part
won't
of.
track
Yes,
it as much rigor that we put into a release.
exactly. Yes.
for the-
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Just wanted to understand that.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So if we come up with a list of subgroups now, and then that would be really good logical conclusion to today's meeting, and then we can ask the community to volunteer into what groups that interest them, and then any newcomers. The idea also, one of the ideas is, if you have into this small focus group, then we can also give a better chance for a newcomer to participate, because it's kind of focused, and that newcomer can work with a set of team members. So that's the idea. So Tal, whenever you're ready, probably shall we start collapsing the things in the top level?
Yeah, we can start. I will say that we're missing a few people today. Wim and Stephen aren't here. They'll probably have a lot to say about this, but
No,
we can
that's
definitely
okay.
start.
We can make a choice, and then we can always change. I'm not saying this is the final one, but at least let's start. Let's come up with a proposal. Then, obviously, I think yesterday Wim and Steven said they are in principle in agreement with what we are doing. So let's come up with a list of teams, sub teams, and then let's propose it. And then obviously that's not set in stone, right? If that needs change, we'll change it.
Yeah, so go ahead and start if you have an idea how to start consolidating.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing like we did yesterday. I think like the STK, I think the way I'm looking at it is observability in SA. I think Subhash and Varada, they want to have separate teams to tackle it, because they think there are enough separate items. That's what I'm understanding from them. I'm okay with one or two teams there. One for platform, one for ORAN, one for documentation is what, and one for security is what I'm thinking. So SA.
Yeah.
SA, I can go. I'm okay with 1 or 2 teams for SN observability. What do you think, Tom?
I that seems okay. um, so SDK also, right?
Yes, STK. Yeah.
I would prefer to call it onboarding. We're working on the SDK, but we're also working on Helm integration, which could be part of the SDK, but might not.
Okay.
I don't know if people are specifically NF onboarding. Right? I don't know if that makes sense to other people too, but so we have 6 teams listed here. This seems to cover. To me, this seems to cover everything, right? All the topics, everything we listed can be included in one of these 6 teams.
Yes. So
I'm thinking also, as I said, including SIG 3, I think testing, for end-to-end testing, for example, and improving the, I don't know if that should be a separate or task
yeah,
force.
I think
It's
yeah,
included in everything, right? Everybody has to be involved in testing. So yeah, probably not separately. But also everybody has to be involved in security and documenting what they're working on. I don't know if these two really need to be separate, right?
But hey, Kyle,
Yeah.
so maybe you might want to think about that, right? So testing, obviously, like even for the ORAN, which are use case driven, right? We have end-to-end tests that we'll do, and there might be enablers that that uh, that we require in order to do our end-to-end testing. The testing framework, the mocks, stuff like that. That I don't know. Maybe there's that piece of it, and that's what I see with the security piece as well. They're going to have certain security things that they're going to want to hook up, right? They'll have their own use cases. That's my point, I think, on security. Documentation, while in ORAN, we'll use the security enablers, we'll use the documentation, we'll use the testing, but they'll have their own use cases that they're trying to see that's different than the core platform, which is, the more, deployment type of stuff, right? Infrastructure deployment.
Right. Well, so let's think practically. Let's say we have a security team of 3 engineers, right? So will they really have their own board that they're looking on, or will they more be scattered in the other?
So they're implementing Spiffy, right? For example. So all that, let's take that as an example, right? So they'll be hooking in all the Spiffy stuff, right? Then the ORAN guys, I might need part of that, or even the platform might need that Spiffy pattern to hook up the config SIG between the workload cluster and the management cluster, what the back channel that Wim was talking about, right? So my point is that they're going to have their own use cases of trying to set up their own architecture, right? For playing people.
Yeah, in an ideal world, we can have 20 sub-teams.
No. But I'm saying that those 3 people aren't going to be are going to be talking among themselves, setting up that platform piece for security. That's all I'm saying. Same thing that what Gergely did with documentation. There's documentation. Everyone will do documentation. ORAN's got to do their documentation, but there's got to be documentation. I'm going to say, core stuff that's going to need to be done, right? Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Does this make sense? So we'll have basically 2 types of teams, and
well, platforms are horizontal thing, right? So
you could say that it's horizontal, but I guess so. But it's
yeah,
vertical
I
teams,
yeah, let's understand the purpose. I mean, it's okay. We can call it horizontal, vertical, or whatever. But the main goal is to create sub teams and have interested people join the team and get the execution done. I mean, we understand there is interdependencies. We understand things could be done, and then even, for example, ORAN team could be doing some platform work if the need be. I
Yeah,
mean,
sure,
it's
sure,
okay.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the idea is to just make sure we do this and then start working. Otherwise, that was the goal, Tim.
Yeah, yeah, I get you. I was just saying, I think the security guys are going to want to have their own team together to get things ready. So,
Yes, absolutely.
like the
Because
documentation guys did for
Yeah.
documentation.
Yeah, I think there already is a SIG 4 separate meeting, right? So the question is, engineers who want to start doing PRs and work on specific issues relating to the use cases, are they better off being their own team or working together with the existing teams? But it could be both. I imagine quite a few of us will be on multiple teams, right? And try to assist in multiple efforts. But then the question is that a good way to work, or will people just be very dispersed and have trouble focusing on achieving specific goals? Bala, both of us talked about doing a retrospective from R1 and R2. We failed to do that so far. We have so much work that we don't have time to look back too much. But
we did actually. We did talk.
yeah, we did a little bit. You're right. The question is, what have we learned from the bad crunches we had in R1 and R2 that we can avoid that for R3 and keep people more focused? I think some of that is implicitly here already and how we're trying to organize these teams.
Yeah.
So yeah, and this can also evolve, right? Let's say in 2 months we feel that this is somehow a mess and people are complaining about a lot of problems they have and either choosing which issue to work on or getting PRs in and merged, then we could possibly rediscuss the structure too, right? Nothing is set in stone.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then only one thing is I just want to make sure that I know you put SA and you consider both SA and observability into one. That I'm okay with that. I just want to make sure that Subhash and Vardhan, they are okay with that, because those are two principles we're working on, those two items here. So Subhash, Vardhan, take a look at it. And then, by the way, I think Vish has also raised his hand. Vish, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I mean, to the earlier points that you guys made, at least at the base level, you just want to make sure that folks that are interested in a certain area, they have somebody that they can work together with, right? Instead of actually one person doing one patch shot, one PR, or if that expert, also if he can actually announce, like saying, hey, I'm looking for people to work with, to who wants to collaborate with, that would be great. That way we can slowly start building up that collaboration and spreading that knowledge. It's just a request if it can be made.
Yes. That's the idea, Vish. That's the idea. This
At a base level, yeah.
Yes, one of the idea of this is like spread the knowledge, onboard new team members, and then working in a small team setting may not be as overwhelming as
Right. And also in some cases, we also want to be able to say, hey, I got this PR. Can somebody download it, test it out? That is also one other way of spreading the knowledge, even though you're collaborating on the PR. So it doesn't always have to be the code only. So
absolutely, yeah.
Hey, Cal,
Yeah.
just real quick on that ORAN use case, it's not a joint board. It's just what I want to do is make sure we got the same communication. So we already have a discussion ORAN communication for it, right? So
Right.
and they can be separate teams. Obviously, SIG 2 is going to have their own board for it to track the tasks and everything else. But the conversation that happens on the channel, right? The Slack channels, that they can be the same one. It should be.
Yeah. We'll definitely, we might have too many Slack channels too, and we might be a good idea to start organizing Slack channels, maybe renaming some of them. I will say, because we don't pay for Slack, conversations disappear after some time anyway. We don't have a long archive. So this is why I'm not too concerned about deleting channels, because there's not too much to lose anyway, unfortunately. So I think there's definitely room to consolidate. We want to have all the SIGs working together, right, as much as we can. separate when to avoid, too much chatter, but especially as we're moving towards a phase now of really working. So people from SIG 1 and SIG 2 should have as much transparency towards each other's work as possible, right? I think that we're all in favor of that. And people will have to do their individual decluttering, right? If you're not an engineer and you're annoyed by too much discussions about engineering and implementation stuff, well, you can remove yourself from the channel. I hope we don't get to that point where there's too much information, but if there is, we can find ways. Maybe I'm in favor more of consolidations and separation only if we really need to.
And also, where possible, we can have GitHub discussions, right? So that we don't lose that
yes,
technical conversation.
Very true, right?
Please.
In some cases where I think GitHub discussions are very good for design and implementation brainstorming, right? And that's a place where we can keep the discussion also more open to the world at large. People who are not on Slack can go to GitHub and see some of the larger topics. Slack is better for more short-term,
tactical, only like, saying, hey, what are we going to be doing about this? Things that is not actually something that needs to be reviewed again and again.
Right. So it's a bit longer term, but sometimes it could be shorter term. You can use, let's say we're trying to solve an issue with Porch, and it's a big issue, and it's not simple to solve a bug, and might need redesigning something. So I think that could be discussed maybe on GitHub, right? We've done that in the past, for example.
Yeah, and hopefully for any release items, like, since we already have a storyboard and we'll have GitHub issues open for it, those discussions can happen as part of the issue itself and GitHub. So hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we can make sure to link issues to discussions, etc.
Yes.
So to give a nice trail for people to follow.
Yeah, because now I was trying to go search some things yesterday, some discussion that I had with John, which was 6 months back. I think it's all lost now.
Yeah. Okay, so we're just about out of time. I think we made some progress here. I haven't heard huge objections, but I think people need to think about this a little bit. Let's try to actually finalize this next week. Hopefully Wim, Stephen will be here. And I think by next week, are we already? Yeah. Oh, we're still in March. When does daylight saving time change in Europe? Somebody know? Is it at the end of the month?
Yeah,
Sagar?
it should be 24th.
The 24th,
I think. Yeah, next week will be the last week when we suffer, more or less, I think.
So
okay, so next week we're back to normal when we're consolidated.
Isn't
31st, sorry, yeah.
Oh, 31st, okay.
31st March. By the way, just a proposal, why don't we do one thing? Also for future, we fix the time on CET.
Well, I would say let's raise the time zone issue in the TSC meeting, and I would say I'm generally, I've mentioned this in the past. I would want to do a head count of how many people are in each time zone who participate in Nefio. I think we've been very focused on the Pacific time zone, which might be unfair at this point. That started when Google spearheaded this project, and okay, that was the focus. But I think we're at a point where we might have more people from Europe and India than from United States involved. So it would be unfair, in my view, to have the time zone very American focused. So I'm really open to changing everything, but that really worries people. So it's a big topic. I would say let's raise that in the TSC because it involves all the SIGs and our integration with Linux Foundation, etc. Yeah, I want to be fair to the community as a whole and not have a bias just because historically it started from Google. But that's my own opinion. Any final notes?
Well, thanks, Tal. I think we achieved, more or less what we wanted, and then let's finalize this. And this is good. Actually, our next step would be to advertise this, and then create sub teams based on the interest groups, and then take it from there.
Correct. Yeah, Bella, I'm thinking too that I listed all these ideas here for GitHub labels, but we already have existing labels.
Yes, yes.
I wonder if
use
it's
this
worth.
I use this as rule of thumbs and ideas. Then we'll
Yeah.
make sure that we play well with what we have.
Yeah, but we can also consolidate what we have, right, and make sure that. Here's the issue: when people, we might have a list that we make here right now, but when people start an issue, they look at the list that GitHub shows them of what are the labels, and they pick the most relevant ones. And if we have some legacy labels, it might just be confusing. So we could potentially rename them with like a legacy prefix or something so that people don't use them by mistake. Yeah, I'm just worried that we have a clutter from previous work and new work, and I'd like it to be clear for users.
Sure,
But,
Tom. Yeah. If there is anything confusion, we'll remove that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you for the conversation and your inputs. And yeah, looking forward to next week when we can really set teams and start working on issues. That would be great. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all soon.
Cool. Thank you so much. Have a good one, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.